Freshmen are inundated with diversity agenda from day one. A new study shows the costs of political correctness, and a Catholic university doubles down on vaccines. I'm Wyatt Eichholz, and you're watching Campus Countdown. Starting off this week with story number 3. Freshman orientation materials dominated by diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. Before college students even walk through the door on the first day of class, progressive ideology under the label of diversity, equity, and inclusion is being crammed down their throats. According to a study conducted by free speech advocacy group Speech First, over 90% of schools studied had DEI language in their orientation materials, defined as material about microaggressions, anti-racism, trigger warnings, bias, racial equity, and discrimination. Multiple schools required students to take what are called implicit bias tests, while North Kentucky University advertised opportunities for students to attend drag shows. By contrast, only 30% of university orientations contained material about free speech or viewpoint diversity. The net effect of this trend is to tilt the scales in the favor of wokeness before students have even interacted with professors. These orientations set the groundwork for all interactions on campus, particularly those in a social setting outside of the classroom. However, the study did reveal a few exceptions to the rule. Schools like George Mason University and Louisiana State University were commended for their exemplary devotion to free speech principles. Next, we turn to campus reform correspondent Spencer Dalkey for our next story.
Thanks, Wyatt. A study authored by Joel Koopman from Texas A&M University and Claudiana Lonage from the University of Florida found that making efforts to be politically correct with one's peers in the workplace requires, quote, cognitive resources, unquote. According to the study, when an individual's cognitive resources are depleted, then his behavior becomes careless. The findings listed angry or withdrawn behaviors toward one's spouse at home. In addition, the lack of cognitive resources often corresponded with workplace behaviors that were unethical, deviant, or at best, unhelpful. The Mises Institute argues that even at the corporate level, trying to enforce political correctness at work uses time and resources that could be invested elsewhere. At the end of the day, Andrew Leston, a student at Texas A&M, told Campus Reform that as a Christian, he understands the importance of loving one's neighbor. But, quote, on the other hand, we have to live grounded in reality. It's not possible to make everyone happy and comfortable all the time, nor should that be our goal, unquote. Back to you, Wyatt.
Thank you, Spencer. For this week's story number 1, a Catholic university keeps its vaccine mandate amid ongoing lawsuit. A vaccine mandate at Creighton University, a Jesuit university in Nebraska, will be enforced after students were denied their request for a preliminary injunction against the rule. This conflict originated in 2021 when Patrice Quadrell was denied a religious exemption to the mandate and was subsequently dropped from her classes by the administration. In response to this, students filed a lawsuit against the school for being discriminated against in enrollment due to their vaccination status. They filed for temporary injunctive relief to prevent the rule from taking effect while the case was proceeding, but that lawsuit request was denied. The original lawsuit is itself still pending. Although the school has since begun to grant religious exemptions, Creighton's official policy still requires that all students, faculty, and staff be vaccinated, and that any unvaccinated students be masked while indoors. The university has not yet commented on whether the policy will continue to be enforced given the recent change in CDC guidance on vaccination and masking policies. Those are the top 3 stories for this week, but before we wrap up, it's time for our woke tweet of the week. Dante Stewart is a speaker and writer on the subject of race, politics, and religion. He has been featured on CNN and in the Washington Post, and is currently studying theology at Emory University. On August 21st, Stewart wrote, "Let's be clear. The word woke is just another word for black. When people are talking about wokeness, they're actually talking about black equality, black dignity, and black liberation. That is what they hate. They are anti-black. It has always been about white supremacy and power. Stewart makes the case that individuals who are speaking out against wokeness are actually promoting white supremacy and white power. In his tweet, Stewart asserts that wokeness actually means the same thing as all of those other ideas of black equality, dignity, and liberation. Of course, Stewart provides no substantiation for this argument. And while wokeness was originally a slang term, even the Merriam-Webster dictionary, at least at the time of this recording, defines woke as the state of being aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. In other words, wokeness is just another term for the social justice warrior ideology, not a coded terminology for blackness or white supremacy. That said, it seems that the hallmark of modern wokeness is the constant shifting of definitions and terminology. Words are continually redefined and dictionaries literally rewritten in order to satisfy the politically correct usage demanded by the progressive left. Well, that's all for this week's edition of Campus Countdown. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. To stay up to date on more leftist bias on campus, make sure to follow us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Campus Reform. I'm Wyatt Eichholz. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check in next week to Campus Countdown.